From the bottom, hey, got to be up in your face, putting groupers in the chase, putting work to paper base. On the up and I'm on the road, you can eat and you cutting cold. Hyper driving, no cruise control.
Welcome, everyone. It is time to talk about NXT from October the 14th. We also will be talking about some of the cuts that was made to LFG and Evolve, and we're going to talk about Ridge Holland as well. So strap yourself in if you're into WWE developmental talk. We're going to get into it. But first, of course, we got to talk about NXT. NXT was actually fairly good tonight. There was another show that it kind of got weak there for a second, then it bounced back. Ricky Starks called out Trick Williams for abandoning NXT, said he was delusional, crazy, and stupid. Said that Trick Williams should prove him wrong, wrestle him at Halloween Havoc. Trick Williams says that Ricky Starks has been claiming to carry the brand, but he's just been following Trick Williams' footsteps, and these size 15s are way too big. Said that Ricky Starks pressed that he worked his whole career to get here, and all Trick Williams did was show up and get the spotlight. He said they'll do it, but they're going to do it on his time. Later in the show, Trick Williams attacks Ricky Starks backstage, one of the many, many backstage attacks on this show. They treating the backstage area like the NXT parking lot. There's constantly people going down backstage. It's absurd, the amount of backstage attacks that was on this show. It was absolutely absurd. Ava told Ricky Starks as he fumed looking for Trick Williams that he's going to see him next week face to face for the contract signing. So I like this. This was tremendous. Clearly, it was. I heard this episode was taped, which is why some people saw the end of the show before others. Also, why I think the promos, like Trick Williams' promo being on the big screen, was a little weird. Kylie Armstrong being in the Battle Royal but not wearing her usual gear was kind of weird. There were some really weird things that was occurring. But people said this show was taped. Also would explain why JC Jane was on this show. I'm pretty sure JC Jane is hurt, but we're going to talk about that later. Anyway, I like the idea of Trick Williams versus Ricky Starks. That's absolutely a pay-per-view main event. I'm 100% in on that. You don't got to sell me much more than you've already sold me. I could have guessed it when Trick Williams walked out on NXT last week that he was going to end up being the number one contender, but I thought they'd make him earn it. Having Ricky Starks call him out is perfectly fine, however. So Javon Evans and Leon Slater, this actually felt legitimate. Like they actually cut this promo somewhere. It was backstage, so it could have been pre-taped or whatever. But this actually discussed what happened at TNA. And they, of course, joked that they had the other one beat, yada, yada, yada. And then they mocked Dark State a little bit. The Hardys came in and said, oh, yeah, we'll take care of these guys for you. No problem. Dark State beat up the Hardys backstage later that night. What? Yes, they beat up the Hardys. And apparently they're going to get a rematch. I don't remember when, though. It don't matter, because I don't want to see Dark State. I don't want to see, hear, or talk about Dark State. I'm over Dark State. They are doing what I said they were going to do, which is that Javon Evans and Leon Slater, they're teasing that they're going to be a tag team. I can see in the future that they're going to wrestle the Hardys. I can see that coming. Also, Brian Alvarez was probably standing up screaming because the Hardys said that Slater and Javon are the future. And you know how much that triggers him. He's been going on rant after rant about how these 21-year-old guys should be main eventers right now. Come on. Come on. Nobody takes that seriously. You only lose credibility when you say stuff like that. This ain't the NBA. Okay? Take the NFL. You can't do that. Yeah, at least get these guys grow proper beards or something, okay? Anyway, Matt Cardona lost to Josh Briggs. Boy, oh boy. He was very excited. He being Matt Cardona, of course. He's been begging and pleading to get on NXT ever since he left WWE. I think maybe the first couple of months he was happy being an indie wrestler, but ever since at least 2023, he's been banging on the doors, hoping somebody left the back door open so he can slide in. He's been tweeting WWE constantly trying to get back in, which is why I'm surprised he willingly did the job. It's like, you probably should have said, that's more of a Zack Ryder thing. That if I'm gonna do this, I should win. I mean, Josh Briggs is a bum, so why shouldn't you win? But then again, NXT is trying to do something with Josh Briggs, but I don't know why. I don't know why. Why don't they leave him alone? He let him go. El Hijo Dr. Wagner Jr. defeated Lexis King. It was fine. Dr. Wagner, El Hijo Dr. Wagner Jr., he moves kind of slow. He's a big guy. Very big. But no muscle definition whatsoever. Lexis King is a agile guy. No muscle definition whatsoever. The match, probably too long. Probably. But it was a solid showing. After the match, El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. called out Ethan Page. They agreed to have a match at Halloween Havoc, but El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. said it's going to be a Mexican Day of the Dead match, which means anything goes. Apparently, only Ethan Page's title will be on the line. So, I expect probably El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. is probably going to win. You know, they've been building this thing up, and I know that WWE has wanted to sign him for a while. They are big fans of this guy, and they tried to sign him before they bought AAA, but he ended up signing with AAA. So they just bought the company in order to get him to come to the company. So maybe that's what they're going to go for. I don't know. You got so many guys, so many other people that I would go with outside of El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. At the same time, though, if you want to kind of make an instant Mexican star, you could have him win. Ethan Page has been doing a good job as North American champion. On the house shows, he's been wrestling main roster guys. I think he wrestled Alex Shelley or Chris Sabin in Detroit last Friday. The next night, he wrestled Johnny Gargano in Cleveland. So he's been having bangers. He had a great match with Mustafa Ali last week. I mean, he's really been doing a good job. So I'm not sure I would take the belt off of him and put it on this guy. Again, I'm not so sure how this guy's going to get over with the American audience. That's all I'm saying. It might be a big deal for the Mexicans, but I'm not so sure for the American audience if it's going to work. Laney Reed is now officially a member of Fatal Influence. They did it with a vignette, not in the ring. They just kind of did a 40, 50-second vignette, which is fine. Zarya was doing a Maybelline commercial, I guess. I don't know. And Sol Ruka is dressed because she's going to be in the Battle Royal tonight. Zarya was upset by this and says, you know, what are you talking about? How many more titles do you need? And so she's like, look, I'm just going to go out there and handle this Blake Monroe thing. But we don't use the word Blake Monroe here. Her mama called her Mariah May. I call her Mariah May. Zarya versus Mariah May was the third match on the show. And Zarya seemingly had the match. She was doing okay. And then Mariah May fled outside the ring to grab a steel chair. She came back in the ring. Sol Ruka snatched the chair away. While the referee was distracted, Mariah May pulled a hairpin from her knee pad and stabbed Zarya in the neck with it. Jesus Christ. She stabbed her in the neck. Anyway, she hit the beauty shot, which I believe is just a DDT, a double arm DDT, and got the 3 count. So Zarya is still a jabroni. Okay. Well, they're building up Mariah May. Obviously, she's going to be a contender for the North American title. She would attack Mariah May later in the show, where Zarya Well, might as well go ahead and tell that part. So, Zarya was okay. After she got stabbed in the throat, she was all right. Soruka came around, was like, look, you're right. Mariah May's been right. You're right. I don't need any more championships. We're going to get those tag team titles, but tonight is about you. So she gave Zarya her spot in the Battle Royal. But during the match, Soruka got attacked by Mariah May outside the ring, and Zarya actually eliminated herself in an attempt to help Soruka, even though it did not come across that way. I don't know why you had to jump over the top rope to try to help Soruka. You could have slid under the rope, and they're telling a story, man. So that's one of those things that it's of convenience that Zarya is an idiot and jumped over the top rope in order to eliminate herself. But when this thing blows up, this is going to be a big turning point because Zarya had a pretty good run in this match too, and she lost because of Soruka and Mariah May. Mariah May's out here stabbing folks. Jesus. They announced a men's speed tournament. They said there's going to be 4 competitors: Zachary Wentz, Axiom, Super Sean Legacy, and Jasper Troy. Of all the NXT people they could have picked, they picked Jasper Troy. Of all people. Jasper Troy will be wrestling. I believe he's going to be wrestling Zachary Wentz of TNA. I'm not sure. I forgot. I just wrote down the names. I didn't write down the bracket. But I believe Axiom is a good choice because he's a cruiserweight. I think this is basically like a cruiserweight division, in my opinion. Sean Legacy is going to kill it here. Why he hasn't been just signed to a regular WWE is nutty. He should just go ahead and get a job. I don't understand what they're waiting for. Unless he doesn't want one, I would imagine he does. So I would just get a guy a fucking contract. What are we waiting for here? But I could see Sean Legacy getting to the finals, but it'll probably be Axiom though, just so they can have the mask thing. But Jasper Troy, get lost. Hank, Tank, Chase U, and the Culling, they had an issue backstage, and they decided to have a triple threat match to see who would be the number 1 contenders for the tag team titles. This match was thrown out when OTM attacked everybody. OTM out the mud. The guys who've had 2 different managers, one of them got fired, and the other one became a superstar, and she left them behind. And these guys are still here. I completely forgot they existed. How many returns is this for OTM? 4? 5? I'm not seeing it, bro. I don't know, man. Maybe this time it'll work. I doubt it, though. I doubt it. All right. So the big battle royal featured women from TNA. I only wrote down the women who were from TNA because the rest were just basically NXT talent. And there was some Evolve talent in there too. So there was Zaya Brookside, Lei Ying Lee, Alicia Fox, who I guess counts as a TNA talent. The Iconics, they got paid to be here again. And Mara Sade. She's also back. They're using her more as a TNA talent than they ever used when she was in WWE. She's here every week now. When she was on the roster, she couldn't get on the goddamn show. Now she's on TNA. She's on the show every week. Huh, how about that? So, let's go through this. Alicia Fox and Ariana Grace was being silly on the ring apron. Basically they was just pulling a Warrior and Hogan where they both kind of just looked like they were going to attack each other. Then they tried to agree to get back in the ring and they both got eliminated. So they were being silly. Again, Callie Armstrong was in there. She looked completely different than she usually does. Hair was out. Usually she wears like all black gear, but now she's wearing like purple and green and purple and gold. And I'm like, man, I didn't know who that was until I like looked really, really closely. And they did not make a big deal out of Callie Armstrong being in this match. It's weird because Evolve is supposed to have their special event this week, which is, they call it Succession or whatever. Then they went and fired like 10 people off the roster, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And they didn't really mention her being in the match. It was almost like she was an afterthought. Like, was it a spoiler? I don't know. But she was in this joint. They did the Meta Girls spot, which everybody has been waiting for a long time. Lash Legend almost eliminated Mara Sade, and then she had to think about whether she was going to save her or not, and she did, and they got the big hug, and everybody was happy, and then Zarya drop kicked Lash Legend or something, and Mara Sade fell off the apron, so that was crazy. A group of women got together and bench pressed Lash Legend and threw her out like she was goddamn Andre the Giant. That was amazing. That was tremendous. I mentioned earlier already that Zarya eliminated herself trying to help Sol Ruka. They did a spot with Kalani Jordan and Jordan Grace. Now, earlier in the night, they got into an argument because Kalani Jordan did not like Jordan Grace's refereeing for the showdown match. I didn't think she was a fair referee. I don't know what her complaints would be. That was my problem last week, is that she was too fair. She was really fair. She was unreasonably fair last week. And Kalani Jordan was upset about this. I guess they're trying to tease this heel turn again. It's not going to stick. It didn't stick last time. It's not going to stick this time either. She's too adorable. So she's saying like Jordan Grace was a big fish in a small pond when she was TNA Women's Champion. And Jordan Grace kind of got offended. She was upset about Kalani Jordan, having a kind of I don't want to use the word uppity, but she kind of had an uppity attitude. In the match, they tried to eliminate each other. At some point, Jordan Grace was wrapped up by Kalani Jordan. Kalani Jordan got knocked off over the top rope and did a handstand rather, to stay in the match. She locked her ankles under the bottom rope. It was going to do a sit-up to get back in the ring when Jordan Grace kicked her in the face and kicked her out of the match. So they're telling a story here with the TNA Women's title with Jordan Grace and Kalani Jordan, which is why they should have had Jordan Grace do something last week. I'm okay with this. I actually thought Jordan Grace was going to win this match. I really did. But her versus Kalani Jordan could be fun. I wonder do you do that match on TNA's show? Or do you do it on an NXT show? Like, do you do it at Halloween Havoc? Or do you do it at, what's the next TNA thing? Is it Turning Point? I don't know. But either way, it would be fine. Another person I thought that could win this match that didn't was Lola Rice. She was one of the favorites. She got eliminated. Jada Parker, another one. The two most over women in the match, neither one of them won. The third most over woman in the match was Jordan Grace. She got down to the final four, but she also didn't win. Kendall Gray, who they've been pushing the hell out of on Evolve, I mean, she's actually not a bad in-ring competitor. Like, her wrestling stuff is not bad at all. It's more of a personality thing with her. She's pretty smooth in the ring, and she actually knows how to apply the holds. I think she's got like a serious amateur background. So she's really good. Just a personality and character thing, which she really doesn't have. And she made it to the Final Four. The Final Four was Izzy Dame, Tatum Paxley, Jordan Grace, and Kendall Gray. Izzy Dame and Tatum Paxley was working together, and they eliminated Kendall Gray. Then Tatum Paxley and Jordan Grace were wrapped up together, and Tatum Paxley was leaning over the top rope. And Jordan Grace was there as well, and she was also kind of leaning over the top rope. Izzy Dame tried to betray Tatum Paxley, and she clotheslined Jordan Grace and tried to take Tatum with her, but the momentum dragged Izzy Dame over the top rope, and Jordan Grace and Izzy Dame both got eliminated, and Tatum Paxley won the big battle royal. She is the number one contender for the Women's Championship in NXT, and it is well deserved. Tatum Paxley is the right choice. If you're not going to go with Lola or Jada, Tatum Paxley is a great choice. She's a sentimental favorite. She's been in NXT for a really long time. She's been there 4 years, I think. I know she was hurt for a long time too. The character has been very interesting. She's been one of those people that she oscillates in how interesting she is to the roster, where sometimes she's important, sometimes she's not. She's actually a good wrestler. She's got a great character. She's got a good storyline going right now where Izzy Dame is sort of jealous of Tatum Paxley and Lyra Valkyria. Even more so now that Lyra ran to the ring to celebrate with Tatum when she won. They're just using Lyra Valkyria as part of this storyline. Like, she's not wrestling on the show. She basically just comes to NXT to visit her good friend Tatum Paxley, who was her stalker when she was in NXT. And Tatum Paxley's whole gimmick is that she's a weirdo who, you know, is kind of clingy and she loves her friends. And she was friends with Lyra, and Lyra is always going to be her number one friend. And now Izzy Dame's trying to weasel in there and was trying to manipulate Tatum. But as long as Lyra Valkyria is there, she's going to stay on the straight and narrow. So this is a big match. Tatum Paxley versus JC Jane. Not going to lie to you, I would consider giving the belt to Tatum Paxley, especially if JC Jane is hurt. Then you might want to consider giving the belt to Tatum Paxley. But I could see that they're likely going to do a thing where Izzy Dame costs Tatum Paxley the title, maybe even accidentally on purpose. I could see that happening too. Either way, Tatum Paxley as an underdog babyface, winning the title from JC Jane could be tremendous. Now, obviously, yes, you could say Lola Vice is probably more over and they didn't do it. And Jada Parker is more over and Lash Legend is more deserving. And you have all of these various names and the other people are better wrestlers. But I think when you look at the complete package, with the exception of promos, because Tatum Paxley's character doesn't cut normal promos, it would be better for her to be the champion. Now, that's the weak point, though. Like, you have to build around Tatum Paxley's limited character work, her heavy character work, in so much as that she doesn't, like, stand in the ring and cut promos. She would have to be almost like, maybe like a Rosemary or a Mick Foley, where, you know, it's a short title run when she wins it and then maybe she loses it on her first defense. Something like that could work. Like, if you gave her the belt and then you had Izzy screw her out of the title on her first defense, that would be fine. That would get a whole lot of heat on that angle that they're doing. But I'm thinking they're going to have JC's title run be uninterrupted. And that is assuming she's not hurt. You know, I think all three members of Fatal Influence was injured. You know, I think that JC was injured, and then like a day or two later, I was hearing that Fallon Henley was hurt, and then of course Laney Reed was already hurt. But I'm not certain about JC and Fallon, but we'll see. And I think that this episode being taped or whatever is going to give them an opportunity to see how bad this is going to be. But I like the Tatum Paxley choice. I like that NXT takes these chances with the number one contenders. You know, last time they took a chance on Miles Bourne. I kind of figured he wasn't going to win it. I kind of figured Tatum Paxley isn't going to win it either. But this is a different scenario. We might have an injured champion on this in this one. We also have a character that's been around for a long time that has a substantial fan base. I mean, I see Tatum Paxley character art all the time. Like, she's got to be like Tumblr's favorite wrestler. She's got to be. I've seen all kind of fan art for Tatum Paxley every week. There's all kinds of stan accounts. She literally is one of the most popular female wrestlers in NXT. They don't feature her as much as they probably should, considering that. But there's definitely 4 or 5 people I would have considered before Tatum Paxley, because I would have thought about her character not being put in this position. But she's a great choice. It's a great option. So as far as NXT is concerned, it was a solid show. Obviously, none of the matches really got my spurs jingling and jangling. I wasn't like really hot on any match, but the Battle Royal was good. I loved the promo segment with Trick Williams and Ricky Starks. The character stuff between Mariah May and Zarya and Sol Ruka has been really good. The seeds that they're planning with Kalani Jordan and Jordan Grace has been good. I like the speed titles, even though I don't like this Jasper Troy thing. So most of the show, I say, has been rock solid. So it was a rock solid episode of NXT. Alrighty. So before we get out of here, let's talk about some of the cuts from the last week. There were several cuts from Evolve. There was a young lady by the name of Summer Sorrell who was cut. I don't remember who she is. Don't know. There was Jamar Hampton who was cut. This is the gentleman that when Hulk Hogan died, he posted something negative about Hulk Hogan on social media. He didn't really do much on Evolve. He popped up here and there. He did not look super impressive. He looked kind of like another Titus O'Neil. It was very unfortunate for him, but he's gone. Idris Inofe, who I was a fan of, actually, is going to let his contract expire, and he's not coming back. He was in NXT for a long time. I think 4 or 5 years he was in NXT. The Evolve thing looked like it might start working for him. He was finding a nice little lane for him there, but it was his decision not to come back. So it was fine. Hopefully he'll not give up on wrestling and he'll keep trying. Likewise, Zeta Steele, who was a member of the Vanity Project. She was the only female in the group. She was one of the first talents announced for a WWE ID deal. She also will be letting her WWE ID contract expire, and she will not be re-signing, which is an interesting decision. People think that if she's going to go to TNA as a way to make more money and just kind of pop in on NXT, but this led to a whole lot of conversation about the WWE ID program and what does it mean, because, you had Kylie Ray. She got cut from the WWE ID program. Well, they're going to let her thing expire. They're not going to re-sign her. And people are kind of like, she was pregnant. What are you doing? She's pregnant. And like, so what? What does that mean? Carmella was fired while she was pregnant. Like, why do y'all think that people who are injured and pregnant can't get fired or released? Where does that come from? Like, I know that it was bad form, and it might be a bad look to do so. But yeah, they cut people who get pregnant and who are injured. It happens all the time in sports. You're not safe just because you're pregnant. Kylie Ray, or Kaylee Ray, I forgot what her name is pronounced, but she wasn't like some kind of super developmental talent anyway. She was a veteran. She's been around in the business for a long time, and things are not over for her. And as soon as she can get back, they'll probably bring her back anyway. And again, back to what I said about Zeta Steele, she's only 21. She's very young. She can still go and get some more experience. And they'll always have the door open for her. There are some other ones that were cut, but these were sort of the major ones. I think the Zeta Steele cut, or the loss, is probably the most important of the WWE ID Evolve losses, because she had such potential, and she was a major part of Evolve. She was a major part of the show. They also cut Gentala, who I forgot what her real name is, but she's the Asian young lady from LFG. She has a sizable fan base, which I didn't know. But I watched the one match she had on Evolve against Kylie Armstrong, and I mentioned it, that she shows some promise. She has charisma. And a lot of people have been upset because they see she has charisma, but they're like, you're not posting a match. Show us how good she wrestles. How good she wrestles? She's been wrestling for 6 months. She sucks like all the other people who are only doing this for 6 months. She's not that good. I think cutting her was a mistake, personally. She's got charisma. She said that she's not going to give up, that she's going to go back and she's going to get back to wrestling. She's not going to quit wrestling. And I think that's for the best. If she can, I don't think going to AEW would really help her, really. She's not going to learn anything. If she works the indies, if she teams up with somebody who can show her the indies, and some decent indies at that, not where she's going to fall on thumbtacks or anything like that. And she might actually pick up enough of wrestling to come back someday. I really like Gentala, and I think a lot of people do. She had a decent size to her too, so she was fine. That sexy BJ Ray, he was also released. Who cares? The guy never made an appearance on NXT. He was on LFG. He's on that other next gen stupid show. Who cares about that guy? He was nothing. He's already trying to lobby for a job with Tony Khan, which I hope he gets. And I've never seen the guy wrestle. I've never seen the guy cut a promo. I've only seen him be a jerk on reality TV. So I don't know anything about the guy. I watched the show when he was on it, the next gen show. He made me sick. I know that's just his character, but I didn't see any value in the guy as being a character on the show, and clearly nobody else did either. Otherwise, they'd have thrown him in Chase University or something to let him build some personality, but they didn't even bother to do that. Booker T, he did make a comment saying, in response to all these cuts, saying like, hey, you should get like 2 years to get this thing before they start releasing you. And I believe that's what they said several years ago, that they're going to give people about a year or two, and after a year or two you're going to be gone. And that seems to be what's happening. I think the LFG talent should get more time. That's why I think Gentala being cut was probably unnecessary. Yes, there were other people, I believe, that were cut from Evolve that, okay, there's not much there, but I think Gentala had something. Stevie Turner, who had actually been in WWE since like 2018 or something like that. She was the general manager of Evolve, the prime minister of Evolve. She has not wrestled in years, actually. She was brought from NXT UK, where she didn't do much over there. And then they gave her some kind of hacker gimmick or whatever, the future, some such gimmick in NXT. And she didn't do that very long before she ended up being a lackey for Ava. And that ended up with her being the boss of Evolve. She looks very young. I know she had an injury in WWE that had her on the show for a while. But they released her too. And she was very excited because she wants to go back to wrestling. And that might be why they cut her, because she wants to wrestle. And they're kind of like, we don't really need you to do that. I don't remember having a single match of Stevie Turner in my head. Look, maybe all the people who follow the British Indies are thinking this is a big deal. But for me, I just kind of shrug. I don't even remember what her name was before she came to NXT. It's very unfortunate, but they also making room because they're going to bring in some new people. And I know that's how the roster works. That's why a lot of the cuts were Evolve and the LFG talent, because they're going to start cycling in other people that they've signed. So it's fine. There was nothing here that was super offensive. The Gentala cut was a little surprising. The WWE ID program, there's a lot of questions about what was the purpose of this program, and of course all the AEW fans were like, oh, this is just to keep all the good indie wrestlers from AEW. Most of these people were working for AEW before the WWE. Like Jack Cartwheel, he had been in AEW multiple times. He had been in Ring of Honor multiple times before the ID program. If they wanted him, they could have signed him 2-3 years ago. When he was, doing monkey flips in GCW, they would have signed him. Now, all of a sudden, he's on Evolve. You want to sign him? Get fucked. That has nothing to do with that. A lot of these people I've never heard of. And the vast majority of the ID talent I've never heard of. And that's really a problem. because these people can't get booked. The WWE is trying to give these people a platform so they can get more experience, and then they'll eventually sign them to NXT. But this doesn't seem like these deals are going to last very long. I think that after a year or so, they need to make a decision about whether they're going to sign you to NXT or let you go. And I think that's fair. I don't think people should be under ID contracts for 2 or 3 years. I don't think that's right. I think that WWE wants to limit what you can do for a while and pay you for it. Fine. But a year, tops, make a decision. And I think that Zeta Steele making a decision that she's going to leave means that they weren't going to bring her in. But she's also a TNA fan, so maybe she'll pop up over there. Now, the big release of the Evolve releases was Ridge Holland. This one has made the most noise because Ridge Holland not only ended up from main roster to Evolve, but he was also injured while working in TNA. And this has led to a whole lot of discussion because now everybody's a fan of Ridge Holland. Everybody cares about Ridge Holland all of a sudden. The same people who wanted him gone for 2 or 3 years, has hated everything that he does, who called him trash, who, blamed him for the injury to Big E. All these people now, all of a sudden, they care so much about the career and well-being of Ridge Holland. So let's go through some of these talking points that I've seen relative to Ridge Holland. So Wrestling Observer Newsletter says that when they sent him back to NXT, he was making NXT money. He was not making main roster money anymore. So it's not like he's making some giant main roster contract. He was making NXT money. Nobody knows what that means. What does it mean to make NXT money? Like, can you explain, please, what that means? That is incredibly vague, Meltzer. So Alvarez and the rest of them so this is what Alvarez says. They cut his contract. He was making NXT money. He wasn't one of those people making main roster money in NXT. He was making NXT money. Okay. Do you know what NXT money is? We actually all know what NXT money is because of what happened with Jasmine Nix. Except he has more experience than Jasmine Nix. He's been wrestling longer than Jasmine Nix. You don't know what NXT money is in the context of Ridge Holland. Sir, not everybody is going to be paid the same thing just because they're on the same show. There was another story that said that Ridge Holland took a $200,000 pay cut to go back to go from. Okay, so I'm trying. Let me find that one because it's so absurd. And I looked at that and was like, man, you can't be serious. You absolutely cannot be serious. So it's come from Fightful. They said that Ridge Holland signed a 1-year extension in November 2024 that was about $200,000 less than what he had been previously making, and that he made the decision to go back to NXT to try to jumpstart his career, which is laudable. That's amazing that he thought he needed to work some things out and was willing to take less money to do it. But $200,000 less? What was he making? That's the thing. $200,000 from what? Was it $200,000 from $275,000? Was it $200,000 away from $2 million? Was it $200,000 away from him making $1 million? What was he making on SmackDown? See, when we don't know, you leave a question mark on the other end of that equation. It sounds really bad, and it really is crazy for him to take a $200,000 pay cut. I mean, I don't care what it was. Even if it was from $1 million to $800,000, that's still a huge cut, right? That's a huge pay cut. If true, it's a huge pay cut. But still, from what to what? Was it from 400 to 200? I mean, you have to let the people know. You can't just say he took a huge pay cut. We're gonna give you the exact number of the pay cut, but we don't know how much he was making initially, because now everybody's looking like, what the fuck was he making? I didn't know he was making $200,000. That's the crazy thing to me. I'm like, oh, he took a $200,000 pay cut. He could afford to do that. He must have been making a lot of money then. If he could afford to take a $200,000 pay cut, he must have been making a lot. He must have been making at least a mil point two. That's the only way I would take a $200,000 pay cut to stay on the roster. If I was under the threat of losing it all, then sure, I'll take a $200,000 pay cut. If I was under the threat of losing it all, absolutely, I'd take the pay cut. But otherwise, $200,000 is a lot to lose. And I said in my short that he's a pretty good pro wrestler, but he's not an outstanding one. He was probably making all that money because he was on the main roster. He was traveling and he was doing all that stuff with SmackDown. He was tag teaming with Sheamus and everything. And now he's not doing that stuff anymore. He doesn't need to travel as much, so he probably doesn't need as much money. But he does have 5 children. 5. Here's the thing, though. If he decided not to do that and not take that chance, where else was he going to make this kind of money? If you can afford to take a $200,000 pay cut, where else are you going to make that kind of money? Working in Ring of Honor? You think Tony Khan's going to give you that kind of money? I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. But I will say this. This is once again one of those things where industry insiders, they pounce all over it. And they started talking about, what was this new one? Alvarez talking about, this guy's not going to have an income while he rehabs from an injury that happened on their watch. Like, bro, you think they're not going to pay him? You think they're not going to pay him? They said they're not going to re-sign him. They're not going to pay him. They're going to pay him for his time off. He's going to get paid. All right. And they're going to pay for his rehab and all that kind of stuff. It's probably going to be at a diminished rate. Like he might just go back to getting his downside guarantee. But he's going to get paid. That's just the thing. Like Alvarez is out here making you think that once your contract is up, everything shuts off. Like there's all kind of provisions and bullshit in these contracts that, look, if it meant that you weren't going to get paid anymore and you're sitting at home with a broken leg or whatever and you can't work, and now WWE decides, okay, we're not going to renew your contract. Okay, but are you going to at least pay it out? Sure, we're going to pay it out, of course. Like that's common sense. But the contract is up in 3 weeks. Okay, what do you mean? They probably will extend the contract to add the injury time, and then he's going to get paid for the injury time. And then once that is over, it's over. He's going to have to figure it out after that. But they're certainly going to pay for his rehab. And the idea that the guy's going to have 5 kids and no income because he's injured is kind of nuts. That's kind of crazy. And then they said he wasn't getting paid extra to work on TNA, which I honestly do believe that. That I believe. I believe that he wasn't getting paid anything extra for working for TNA. I think TNA should pay them. So that's what I think. I think WWE gets you the booking, but TNA is the one who pays you. That seems to be fair to me. That's what happened back in the day. If you wanted to book Andre the Giant, you had to call Vince McMahon Sr. He would tell you the money, what you need to pay. And then, Andre would go do the date. And then the promoter would pay Andre. That's how it worked. Sure, he's under contract to me, but you still have to pay him. I would imagine he got some money from TNA to work those shows, unless that's part of WWE's deal, is where they pay the talent to work TNA shows, which would then be just him working a WWE show, which means he still got paid for the show. Why would he get paid extra to do a date that WWE sent him to? It'd be no different than if they sent him to do a house show at that point. So we might need to, again, try to figure out what the details are. And people are trying to throw these things out. He's not going to be paid. He's got a busted up leg. He took a pay cut. He's doing all these things. I get it. I really get it. The big thing with me is a lot of these people do not care about Ridge Holland. They do not give a fuck about Ridge Holland. They don't. They're pretending they do because it's TKO bad. WWE bad. Fine, if that's how you feel. I feel that way sometimes too. But at least give people all the information. Don't give us half the information. If you don't know how much he was getting paid, don't tell me about his pay cut. Because you don't know. Whenever you start talking about money, there's all this vagueness. Stephanie Vaquer took less money. She took a pay cut. Okay, from what to what? I don't know. Well, then what the fuck are we talking about this for then? Like, just, if you don't have any details, just leave it alone. And plus, it is true that a lot of indie wrestlers do take pay cuts to go to WWE. Because when you work on the indies, you can raise the cost of your value. Because you have competing promoters that are actually, trying to get you dates. So you can raise your costs. When you go to WWE, you can't raise your costs because it's only one promoter. Right? So it's a little bit different. But you make more money in the long term if you stay under contract because your downside guarantee will increase over time. That's how they get you. They lowball you at first. The lowball, quote unquote. But the promise is that down the road, over the rainbow, there's a pot of gold. Which, common sense. You get an internship at a company, and if you work that internship, you end up getting hired in. Your pay goes from nyah to nyah, and you start working up better. Then you get promoted from nyah to nyah, and now you're making more money. That's common sense to people who have worked anywhere. You go from being, low level to entry level to mid level, and you work your way up eventually. Most people who are in NXT are in an entry level position. They're not making a hell of a lot of money in Evolve and in NXT, and probably not with those WWE Evolve WWE ID contracts. They're not making a whole lot of money there. I can tell you right now what Jasmine Nick said. It sounds about right. The $60,000 to $70,000 range sounds about right for people with no experience. And then WWE has to pay to train you. And if you get hurt, they have to pay for your medical costs. So, yeah, that sounds about right. Your take home is not going to be great. But once you get a couple of years of experience, your contract gets a little hefty. All right. And I'm pretty sure somebody like Stevie Turner, who hasn't wrestled in a while, probably had a decent contract. I don't think she was going to be sitting around on $75,000 and she's got like all these years of experience. It wouldn't even make sense for her to do that. Same thing with Ridge Holland, who's been around since like 2017 or something like that. Wouldn't have made sense for this guy, maybe 2018 or 2019. Wouldn't have made sense for this guy with 5 or 6 years of experience to be making $80,000. Like, what? And then if you were making, and I'm just going to say this one more time, if you were making $280,000 and then you took a $200,000 pay cut, you would have to get a whole new house. You would have to change your entire standard of living. If you lost $200,000 from the point where you were making 6 figures to now you're making 5 figures, you got to change your lifestyle. And I doubt that with 5 kids, he's going to change his lifestyle that much. So I don't believe it. I do believe he was not paid anything extra for TNA. Either I believe TNA was supposed to pay him for those dates, or WWE is paying him to work those TNA dates, which would be the same thing as him working a house show, which means he's not going to make anything extra. I do believe he's going to get paid while he's injured. I don't think they're going to pay him out the entire thing. He probably get his, a shadow of his guarantee. a certain percentage of the money that he was guaranteed, and they're going to pay his medical costs. But other than that, I really don't see this as being a big deal. I think this is one of those things where the internet is trying to make a whole lot out of it. Yes, it has happened where people in AEW have been fired or cut while they were injured. I don't think anybody's been fired or cut while they were pregnant, but certainly while they were injured. And it's not out of the ordinary. There's no reason to lose any sleep over this or to argue with people about it. It's dumb. None of you people care about Ridge Holland anyway. God damn it. All right. We all should be upset about Gentala, though. Gentala had talent. We should be upset about Idris Inofe. He had talent. You know, a lot of those people who got cut, there wasn't much under the hood anyway. But I hope everybody sticks around in wrestling and finds some way to make some money. And hopefully all these people will pretend to give a fuck about Ridge Holland once he is healed up and gets back in the ring. We'll see. Because I'm pretty sure they won't. Like, share, subscribe, y'all. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.